Okay, I'm going to give you a quick overview of where I'm at. I just rounded off the first story, and let's go check out that here. And I'll just go ahead and explain as I'm looking at this. Okay, these are tickets that are currently active. I'm looking at starting the one for localizing messages, and then these are the ones that are coming up and recently closed. So I'll go ahead and bring that one up. Okay, so this was all about being able to process messages that come from the aggregator, right, which is going to be the ProText site, and also being able to submit messages to them. And this is essentially what I have in place. I have a mechanism for defining certain commands that match up with input from the SMS messages, and a facility for making submissions to the gateway as well. Alright, now go ahead and take a look at some of this stuff. Okay, so I already have the Rails server running, and it's awaiting commands. And just to make it easy, I'm going to submit through here. So messages will come into this URL, SMS router, and it's going to be given a message parameter, and this is again going to be submitted by ProText, and some sort of number parameter. And that's essentially it. So the CSC number is supposed to be, from what I understand, a 5 to 6 character code, and that's what I have it validating for. If it's less than 5, then it'll fail. If it's more than 6, it'll fail. At this point, I'm not looking for any specific CSC code. It can be anything that we want. And then this phone number. I'm actually not validating the phone number yet, but I guess we'll get to that when we need to. I'd like a better idea of what that's actually going to look like. All right. So this submitted a message, and it said, okay, please execute action or command R. And because the system was able to see it, it says okay. And I should be able to submit this however many times, and it'll say okay each time. Now if I give it some sort of command that does not exist, for example that, it'll give you back a response with an invalid command. Now of course, this is just a response that's going to go back to ProText, and they're not going to care. And it might be that we'd like to handle these error conditions as messages that go back as SMS to the user. So you can say, hey, you submitted the wrong command, or I didn't understand what you were trying to submit, and we can just take that on later. But as of now, this is giving immediate feedback on those requests to the system. So R is okay. And just to verify that, if I give you some kind of funky CSC number, it'll say, hey, that's your message is invalid. And if I do something less than 5, it'll still say message invalid. Okay. And the same goes for anything else. If there's no number parameter, it's going to fail. Oop. And if there is no message parameter, it'll fail as well. And that's really essentially it. Okay. Just to give you a practical view of what's going on, I won't take you too far into the code, but here's the project. This is essential layout for a Rails app. And under the app models directory, I have an SMS commands directory. Okay, and the naming convention doesn't really matter here for the files, but just to show you how easily we can add another command. Let's say we'd like a Z command, z.rb, and this guy might be something for like send money, and the basic format. They all extend from this SMS command base class. They all must implement some kind of execute method. And here I'm going to simply print a log statement. Repeated the send money. Okay. And there's also a registration process in here, and it's simply done by doing this. So this is the actual command name that will get mapped to instances of this class here. So Command Z. So if we submit a Command Z to our URL, we should see this get executed. And now, because of the logging is buffered, we won't see it right away. But I'll go ahead and do this. And also, right now, I don't have dynamic loading of commands, so I need to restart the server, and that will force it to reread. That's something that could be done if we want. It's not a big deal, but for now, I need to restart the server so that it will read in all of the commands from the file system. And here's a log file. Let's go ahead and submit this guy. It says OK. I'm going to do this a few more times to force the log to flush out. Okay, there we go. So executed the send Monday command, send Monday, but you get the point. And this is when the system started up, registered all the commands in the directory, and that is essentially it. So from here, I can do whatever kind of code that I want to do for this particular command and handle that. Okay. Last thing I want to show you is the submission. So under the Summertime project, under config, there is a SMS config file, right? And it simply has username, user, password, URL, and so the system will use that to submit to the Protect site. And I'm going to go ahead and just give a quick sample of how that works. So I have this thing called an SMS broker, and I can use it to send message, and so the message is going to be something, and then some kind of number. But at this point, it doesn't really matter. It's submitting an HTTP request, and we got back an invalid user password, and that is from the Protect site. I am getting a particular kind of response error from them based on their API. So their API essentially says this as far as their response codes. And so I'm getting back this -2, and that's what's showing up. Okay, a little bit of flush out. That is essentially it. So very easy to add commands. Now I'll start working on the actual logic, persisting stuff, and working through the stories. And I should be able to work through this pretty quick. But before I do that, the next thing I'm going to do is work on localization, just because it would be nice to integrate that from the get-go when I start burning through these other stories. And that's pretty much it. Let me know if you have any questions.